This is Dr. Jenny Byrne. Today, I wanted to take a couple minutes and talk about how leaders have to manage self-care and how important that is, especially during a time of crisis. So, right now, we're managing the COVID-19 crisis. How, as a leader, can you model self-care and why is that so important? So, I've thought a lot about this as a psychiatrist. Just in my past experience, I've found that it's very easy to talk to patients about self care, and it's pretty hard to turn that lens back on yourself. So, we're very good at telling our patients, this is how you should eat, and this is how you should exercise, and this is what I recommend for your sleep, and all of these things. But it's rare that we turn this on ourselves. Why? Because it's really hard. It's hard the work our patients do. It's really hard. So, just thinking as a leader in general, when you are leading teams of people, it's very easy to tell them, okay, I want you to make sure you rest. You to take the weekends off. I want you to take your PTO. But if you don't model that behavior for yourself, it gives a very mixed message. So, for example, with this crisis, if you talk about how everybody did a great job and they work 24/7 and they've been working weekends and you're so proud of them, but then you turn around and say, but everybody needs to take care of themselves, it's a little bit of a mixed message, right? Because you're on one hand praising and applauding people for not taking a break and working nonstop. But then on the other hand, you're telling them that you are wanting them to take a break and stop. So it's a mixed message. So I think it's tricky to balance this because in a crisis, sometimes you do have to work 24/7. Like sometimes that's the reality. But you don't always have to work 24/7. And realistically speaking, you know this as well as I, you are not productive when you don't rest. So if you don't have rest and recharge time, you're simply not productive. So your teams are not going to be productive if they're not rested and recharged. So as a leader, how do you model this? I think it's something that is worth spending a little time on because I suspect that most leaders also feel that when you go 24/7, it makes you look better as a leader, right? Like you're working really, really hard and you're working just as hard as your team members, and that's really very positive. And again, there are times to work 24/7, don't get me wrong. But most of the time, you need to rest and recharge. So, to be an effective leader, if you don't rest and recharge, you personally are not going to be productive. But even worse than that, you're going to model behavior for your teams, and then they're not going to be productive. So, if none of you are productive, you're not going to go very far. So, what are some ways you can do this for yourself? So, first of all, think about all the things that you want your employees to be doing. You want them to be rested. So, first of all, sleep. You have to sleep. There's no other way around it. There's many reasons why it's hard to get to bed on time, hard to get up, but like you just have to do it. If you don't have sleep, you simply will not be rested. So, that means you probably have to give something up. I tell my patients this all the time. It's hard. You have to make some hard choices at night. Most people, if they work, don't have a lot of time in the evening, and you got to make some hard choices. So you might not be able to watch that show you wanted to watch, or you might not be able to work out for an hour and read your kids a story and make dinner, and you just don't have enough hours. So something's got to give, and you have to decide for yourself what that is. For me personally, I don't cook. I don't like to cook at all, so I just don't even mess with it. Somebody else cooks, and I just show up at the table, and that gets me time that I use for other things. So I would spend for myself time reading in the evening instead of watching TV because I feel like that kind of revs me up. Now, it's really hard because my husband may be watching TV and I want to be with him. But I know that if I do that, I'm going to be wound up. So I have to be very overt about it and tell him, like, I want to be with you, but I can't sit here and watch TV. And sometimes he says, okay, and he watches TV, and I go in the other room, and then sometimes he turns it off and we sit together. So that's just me. Everybody's different, but you have a limited amount of time. So resting is just huge. Eating well. We all talk about eating well. I've seen so many leaders, especially healthcare leaders, be really bad at how they eat. So again, you have to figure out what works for you. My solution to that has been to have someone else make the meals and I just show up and eat them. And I really just don't even spend a lot of mental energy on it. I just put the parameters and let somebody else do it. I'm lucky I'm able to do that, and I'm pretty clear in my head that that's not important to me. If you're somebody that really loves food, sometimes you got to make some hard choices. So sleeping and eating are kind of basic. Other self-care is really giving yourself ways to unwind and relax. And again, that could be different things. That could be meditation, that could be reading, that could be exercising, that could be gardening, that could be cooking, that could, like, there's so many different things, and it's really for you. But as a leader, it's so easy to get bogged down in everything else that you just don't do those things. And you say, well, I'm a leader, so why am I spending my time gardening? That doesn't make any sense. I would offer that if you don't spend your time gardening, you're going to be a bad leader. You have to recharge. Whatever the recharge is for you, you have to do it. I would suggest putting it in your calendar and blocking it off the way you would any other meeting. I think that makes it a little easier for people to wrap their heads around, like, this is a meeting that I have to do. And then exercise. Again, this is just basic physiology. If you don't move your body, if you don't move your blood, your brain does not get blood flow. Your body is going to hold a lot of stuff. You're just not going to be as effective. So these, I don't know, these are all kind of no-brainers, but I would just say, as a leader, if you model these things, if you show up every day looking rested, not just eating junk food on the go, if you show up like you've been eating well and sleeping well and you've exercised and your body language is calm, your body language isn't all wound up, and you're really focused on the person you're talking to, you're going to be much more productive and effective, and your team members are going to see that and they're going to respond to it. So I really believe modeling it is the most effective way to lead that behavior in others. The other piece of the equation is calling people out when they do that. So if you have a team member that's taking PTO, calling it out and saying, I'm really glad you're taking PTO. That's so important. How can your team support you while you're out? This helps build your team and lets others understand the importance of their rest and recharging. So you have to positively reinforce people for resting and recharging. And you might want to just ask, a simple way to do it Monday morning is just to ask everybody, what did you do on your weekend? And if you validate the fact that they did things that rest and recharge, if you hear someone say, oh, I worked all weekend, be careful how you react to that. You might want to ask some more questions around that. Like, oh, really? You worked all weekend? Tell me more. Why did you feel that you needed to work this weekend? Be curious about it, but don't rush to positively reinforce that and say, oh, that's great. You worked all weekend. Wow, you're the best employee ever. Because then you start sending those mixed messages. Anyway, so this is something that's been on my mind during this time of crisis, but it just in general, in terms of modeling what you really want your team to do. So hope this has been helpful. Thanks and have a good one.